That is the 5th time it has fallen down this morning. It's as bad as my hair back in, when I first got the hair cut very, very short. I had recalcitrant hair. I tried combing over and it didn't work. So I got it all cut off. And then one Sunday morning when I got up, I got into the church and I said, I've had a dreadful morning this morning. I haven't been able to do a thing with my hair. But I've got another story to tell you. A burglar breaks into a house one night with his torch and he's shining his torch around. And this voice comes out of the darkness. Jesus is watching you. He looks around, he's all startled, and he turns around again and shines his torch over, and there's a cocky on the cage. Jesus is watching you. Oh, very, very upset. And he keeps shining his torch around, and he said, Jesus is watching you. What's your name? My name's Moses. Who gave you that stupid name? Same person that gave that Schnauzer. No, what was he? Rottweiler. Jesus. Thanks for hearing. I think you've probably all heard it before. That's a good one. It was in the Reader's Digest. That's right. But in the Gospel reading today, he says, Jesus replied, it's John 14, 23 to 29, if anyone loves me, he will obey my teaching. My Father will love him, and we will come to him and make our home with him. He who does not love me will not obey my teaching. These words you hear are not my own, they belong to the Father who sent me. All this I have spoken while I was with you. But the counsel of the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, will teach you all things and will remind you of everything I have said to you. Peace I leave you, my peace I give to you. I do not give you as the world gives. Do not let your heart be troubled. Believe in God, believe in me. Do not be afraid. You have heard me say, I am going away, and I am coming back, and I am coming back to you. If you love me, you will be glad that I am going to the Father, for the Father is greater than I. I have told you now, before it happens, so that when it does happen, you will believe. This is the word of the Lord, and the gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. I read that in the first service this morning. I thought that's a really good thing to introduce my talk. You're not going to get the same that the others got. There might be some people that are there for the first service. So it's slightly different. It's Father Michael there. He was here first and so was Aaron. But it was great joy to come here and be part of the congregation and then get asked to preach. We've got a great connection with Holy Trinity. And it started back in Hobart many years ago, back in 1940 when I was baptised at Holy Trinity Church by Archdeacon Blackwood, later to be Bishop of Gippsland. And that's where my grandfather came. There's so many connections. And then I found out that Deb and Nigel were also attenders at Holy Trinity in Hobart, later to get married there, as we and my wife and Trudy and I, we were married there. And I married two of my nieces there, two other men. It has been, so there's great connection to come here to Holy Trinity, here in Kawana Waters. It's wonderful. And that's what the story of BCA is about. It's a place where people will go to other places. They'll go to some of the most unreal places in the world. We were invited to go to Coober Pedy, and we were flown in by the bishop's wife, and the bishop was there as well. And so we all prayed as we flew over She was a great pilot. She got us down, she got us back. We're here, of course. But coming in over Cooper Pedy, we saw all these little anthills. Has anyone ever flown over Cooper Pedy? Yeah, you've been there, but if you fly in over it, there's all these little anthills, you think. And that's there, all their diggings. But a fascinating place. Underground, we slept underground that night, and it was quite warm underground even, but it wasn't as warm as outside. But we only had a night and a day there, and it was very interesting. The people were lovely people. They worshipped in a little catacomb church, which was about half the size of this main auditorium here. And the bishop invited us. We decided we had other commitments and family and other things, and older members of their family, and so we decided not to go. So we stayed in Queenstown. That invitation came from the Reverend Brian Roberts, who was also in charge of BCA, the mission work, for quite a number of years. He's retired now, and we've just sent the last senior missioner off to become Bishop of Canberra Goulburn. There's a new gentleman's been appointed. So BCA is going on. Back in 1990, it started off with a few men meeting. And we've got a little video there, so we just have a look at that, and you'll understand a little bit more about it.
Monday, the 26th of May 1919. It was a cold, wet night in Sydney. But that didn't stop a small group of clergy and laity from gathering at St Andrew's Cathedral to pray for and plan a new, bold and uncertain venture. They had a vision for gospel work that would send men and women to minister in the most remote parts of Australia. But they were not to know that the birth of the Bush Church Aid Society that wintry night would result in thousands of people hearing the good news about Jesus on railway tracks, in forests, underground, in hospital, through the mail, in bush homes and in tiny churches in every state and the Northern Territory. They could not know the number of lives that would be saved by faithful doctors, nurses and bush pilots. They could not know that well-educated children would rise up to face the challenges of the 20th century because they were given a home by the Bush Church Aid Society. They were not to know that no one would ever be able to count the number of people who responded to the gospel of Jesus because of a gently spoken word, a godly example, or a church service held in the bush. 100 years later, BCA continues to work with new ways of reaching people wherever they are. They're planting churches in new deserts, the ones on the edges of big cities. BCA is supporting ministry by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. They're committed to working with the First Peoples so that they can serve Christ in ways that are biblically faithful and culturally appropriate. BCA continues in a commitment of serving hurting people in times of crisis and through Christ-centred pastoral care. And of course, there's still the talking to people, one-to-one, about the gospel of Jesus. It's been a century of change. It's been a century of work. It's been a century of serving Jesus in remote and rural Australia. And in 2019, the Bush Church Aid Society is still going the distance. This year marks the 100th anniversary of the Bush Church Aid Society. An early call for missioners wanted people who possessed plenty of grace, grit and gumption. What was also needed was a desire to travel. If you're going to join BCA, you need to be ready to go. From the early 1920s, the van missioners carried on their ministries in vans which were the first ever versions of motorhomes. And not just men. Women van missioners proved themselves to be just as hardy, just as mechanically minded, and just as able to dig themselves out of dry creek beds as the men. By the end of the 1920s, a plan was pressed into action. The Reverend Len Daniels became Australia's first flying parson as he covered his parish of 200,000 square miles. Today, field staff still cover a lot of kilometres in their day-to-day work, but the real task of travelling has fallen to the BCA nomads. The nomads are mostly retired people who hop in their cars, caravans or motorhomes and head out to help wherever they can. Faye Donaldson, a retired Anglican minister, continues her life of ministry in her retirement. Whether it's raising money in Coober Pedy by selling her famous pumpkin scones, or cleaning chairs for the Catherine Christian Convention, Faye is using her gifts and her retirement to reach Australia for Christ. The Nomads and the Bush Church Aid Society. They really are going the distance.
So, there we go about the early missionaries. There was an early missioner in the 1930s was the Reverend Leon Morris. Leon was the principal of Ridley College, where we did our training in Melbourne. He was there for a number of years, I'm not sure how many, but we happened to be there for his last year before the new principal came in, was Morris Betteridge. But Leon started his early life and his study, and he was, while serving with Bush Church Aid in the 1930s, he and his wife Millicent toured South Australia, outback South Australia. And you saw that van tucked in a trench there, didn't you? And he used to say, if you get into a rut in South Australia, you're in it for 40 miles. He said, don't let your Christian life get like that. Don't get into a rut so that you get stuck in the same old thing. So God's there offering a challenge for us, as he is for the people who go out on helping in the bush. And it's a wonderful thing. And one of it, there's an article that was done in 2014 on the centenary of his birth. And it was written by Barbara Darling, a one-time lecturer and later to be a rector of various parishes in Melbourne, and then went on to be one of the first bishops to be consecrated in Australia. Barbara sadly passed away a few years ago while we were in Gippsland. She had a massive stroke and she stayed, she was younger than me, I tell you, she was younger than all of us probably. She was only in her mid-60s, and so she was a sad loss to the church when she passed. But she wrote these words about it. After she was going to be a student in the 1970s, after arriving late from an overnight train journey from Sydney, I knocked cautiously on the imposing front door of Cumberland, when a diminutive man opened the door. I thought he must be the butler, but it was Dr. Morris in his lumber jacket. He took me upstairs to meet Millie, and we had a cuppa in their tiny little kitchen and chatted for a while before welcoming me to come to the college if I'd like to. So she went to the college, she stayed there for a number of years. She was one of the first lecturers there. So she was a real pioneer in many respects in theological education in church ministry. And so that was with Dr. Morris. Others have also commented upon his he wasn't a very tall man, let's put it that way. There was another early missioner. He wasn't with Bush Church Aid because it was before BCA. the starter. His name was Frederick George Copeland. He's on the left side of the picture, and that's Bishop Henry Montgomery, the father of Lord Montgomery of Alamein. And on George Copeland's little tie there, you've got the cross, and there it is. I bought it. It was given to me by his grandson, and back on the centenary we celebrated at Queenstown. And that little book, this booklet, is called In the Wild, Wet West of the Tasmania. Now, I was speaking with Reuben in an earlier service, and he said, it's dry out at Cunnamulla. I said, yes, I know it is dry at Cunnamulla. I can't say the same about the West Coast. We visited a place called Waratah on the West Coast many years ago, and I said, how much rain do you get here, mate? And he said, oh, about 12 feet. And it was like that at Queenstown. It rains upwards of 300 days a year. It's a bit like Tully up here in Queensland. So we had a very interesting 8 years on the West Coast. We had a number of centres, and we had many events happen. We had a mine closure, we had a celebration of that. We had some celebrated 2 centenaries of churches. I don't think I'll be here for the centenary of this one. I'll be lucky. I'd create a world record, I reckon. But in St Martin's in 1998, we celebrated the centenary. But we also found out that the church hadn't been consecrated. And you can only concentrate if you know your church legalities. You can't concentrate a church that's got a debt on it, and it hadn't had a debt. It was paid for at the very beginning, but they forgot to consecrate it. So we searched the church records, and the bishop consecrated the church on the date of the centenary. The church is still going. They've got lay people ministering down there on the West Coast, and we had some lovely times in those places. And then we had another centenary at Holy Trinity at Strawn. There's another Holy Trinity. They seem to pop up all over the place, don't they? And we had that in that book that I showed you. There's some wonderful stories of the West Coast. And Frederick Copeland's grandson presented that to me in 1998. He was a lovely fellow. We had visits by Prince Charles. He flew in to Strawn and came up the winding road up to Queenstown, and he had a time with the community there. And then, for those of you who know AFL football, and we're talking about the Aboriginal round this time, Gavin Wanganeen, the first Aboriginal to win the Brownlow medal, won it in 1993. He visited down there at Queenstown. And I only went along because he's an Essendon man. And we won the premiership that year too. So it was a great year for us. And Alistair Lynch, you might have heard of him in Brisbane football circle. He came from Queenstown. And I met him one day and I said, where'd you get your name Alistair? It's the same as my son, Alistair. He said, oh, we were named after Alistair Lord, a footballer for Geelong. There were twin brothers who played for Geelong. One of them was Alistair Lord, and he won the Brownlow once as well. So we had that, but we had some interesting people come to Christ down there. We had three adult baptisms at a place called the Dundas River. If any of you travelled up there between Zion and Queenstown, and we had 3 family members in their wetsuits. One of them couldn't swim, so we tied a rope around him, and I hopped into the water in some Wellington waders, big waders up here, fishing waders. Got in, we got the job done. We got Ray out of the river. It was running quite swiftly too at the time. But God looked on us that day. It was a grey day, and you would have thought it was going to rain. but we got a breath of sunshine right at that time when we had the service. It was lovely. We thought that God was smiling on us at that time. But as I'm getting out of the water, I said, these boots have leaked. And I borrowed them off our local politician, Peter Schultz. Trust a politician, eh? Anyhow, I gave them back to him and I said, Peter, they leaked. And sadly, Peter died just this last week. We got an email about it. But he was a great supporter of the community and the church, and he was an interesting character. He was quite genuine. We had many services in this. We were involved in the civic things of the community. We had a dedication of the plaque at Rosebery, and the Roman Catholic priest was going there throwing his water out, his holy water. The then mayor, he said, I should have bought the raincoat. He said, I'm getting all wet. And we had civic blessing services. I had to go down to a place called Kelly's Basin. It was down the southern end of Macquarie Harbour. And I went down in the police boat, and I had to hang on for grim life. And I'm going up and down like this with the water. He only knew 2 speeds, flat out and stop. But we had a wonderful, wonderful day down there, walking up the old railway tracks that had been pulled up, where they'd been pulled up from a mine that was amalgamated. We had a barbecue after. You know something about barbecues, you know? Yeah, we had I can remember the barbecue, it was a lovely barbecue. And afterwards, as we were travelling back to Queenstown, one of the people that had been there asked me about how I'd come to Christ. I told him the story, and we got a new member of the congregation. He renewed his Christian commitment, and he got involved in Queenstown. Then we had other Christmas services, and our cat Fanto used to lie down beside the preaching pulpit. And he'd go to sleep there one Christmas night. He was lying there, and he was on the top of the step, and he rolled down onto the next step. He woke up and he walked away and proceeded to clean himself in another area, as cats do. But he loved going into the church for that. We had at the mining closing of the Mount Lyell, they had a special celebration of that, and the whole community was involved. We had a Sunday service up there. We had premiers and all sorts of politicians and people of some note, and all the Mount Lyell people. There's a beautiful video done of it, and it was a great weekend. So we were involved in that. The restoration of the Apt Railway. Now, if you get onto Facebook on your phone and have a look at that, you'll find out things about it, and you'll see things in there. And so many old identities died at various times, including an old George Smith, who opened the mining museum at Seaham, and we had people heavy there. And unfortunately, we had an undertaker down there, Harry Clark, and I asked him one day, I said, we were coming back from a funeral at Strawn, I said to Harry, who's going to bury you when you go? He said, well, if they don't do a good job, he said, I'll come back and haunt them. But we had some really funny characters there. We also had some sad events, little children dying, then fishermen dying out of Strawn, outside of Macquarie Harbour. And we were able to paint St Martin's Church during our time. The Mount Lyell Company paid for it. I went up there and said, can you give us a donation? He said, well, we'll go one better, we'll just donate the paint. You tell us how much you want. And that was lovely. So we were involved in the community there for a number of years. We had a number of well-known identities who came. Do you remember the dentist out of Father and Son? Henry Zepps. he was a bit of a go-getter. He's a lovely man. He came to Rosebery. We had a night with Henry Zepson. His story was quite amazing. Came out of Eastern Europe. Then Richard Flanagan, the author, you've heard of him. He was brought up at Rosebery on the west coast. And then Nigel was educated down. Nigel was educated at Rosebery. So we've even got a local educator. You brought some good stuff with you, Nigel? Anyhow, Nigel and his lovely wife. Then Geoffrey Blaney, he lived at Queenstown for a while. And then there are other people. Marcus Loane, a former Archbishop of Sydney in the 40s and 50s. He was born at Waratah. So there's been some good things come out of the West Coast, including us, I hope. And thank you very much for your attention to that. And thank you for the warm welcome we've had since we've come here, HTK. Holy Trinity has a special place in our heart. I'll just pray for you. Father, we thank you for this place here at HTK. We thank you for the wonderful people we've met here. We pray, Lord, for your grace and mercy to be upon them as they go forward here. In Jesus' name.